want people to be involved, this is it's a great way for you to ask those questions. We try to host different professionals so that you have that opportunity. So we're lucky today we have Bryan Shering, and he's with Inspect 905. I've had the pleasure of having him come inspect a few of my clients' homes. Very, very knowledgeable. I love the fact that he's so detail oriented and goes through everything with everyone, especially first time home buyers. I feel like knowledge is power. So I think that's great that you're doing that, Bryan. And
thank you so much. Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Yeah. And you kind of started telling us a little bit about your journey, but you had mentioned you're now, this is your company, and prior you were doing this, but you've been in the business for a long time. So why don't you just kind of give us a little
Sure.
back?
Well, you know what? I've been inspecting full time now for 10 years, just over 10 years. I used to work for a big franchise home inspection company, and then about 4 years ago, I opened up my own business. So, 10 years, I've completed close to 3,000 home inspections in that period of time, which is pretty exciting for me. A little bit about myself. I'm on the board of directors for FIPIC. It's the Professional Home and Property Inspectors of Canada. Now, we recently amalgamated with CAPI. It's a Canadian version of a home inspection organization also, which is great. And as far as I just like to be involved with that. I find that these monthly phone calls and talking to other home inspectors is really a great way to learn. And obviously, knowledge is power, especially in this kind of an industry. So I'm certified. I'm a certified home inspector. I'm a professional home and property inspector. I'm a registered home inspector through CAPI. I'm a national home inspector through this big, large Canadian association. I actually hold the highest home inspection designation that you can have right across Canada currently.
Wow.
Until the Ontario government steps up and licenses home inspectors. They've been planning on doing this for years. It just keeps falling in the cracks. So I'm really hoping that gets done sooner than later, because I think we need to get a certain standards universally right across the home inspection industry. The sooner that happens, the better, as far as I'm concerned. But it's in the works.
Would you say then, Bryan, that some people should be very cautious of those, like, of designations when it comes
absolutely. Yeah. That's a good point, because currently in Ontario, home inspections is an unregulated industry. Realistically, anybody with a flashlight and a ladder can call themselves a home inspector. That doesn't mean that they know what they're talking about. So at the very minimum, if you have clients calling around getting some quotes, you're going to find a couple of different prices. And normally when you get to that lower end price point, it's because those people don't have insurance. They've not been doing it very long. This is kind of their side job sort of thing. You really got to be careful who you're working with. So don't be afraid to check references and make a couple phone calls. Ask some friends who they've used in the past. But be careful, because there are some people out in this industry, unfortunately, that really shouldn't be home inspecting.
Yeah,
there's such a liability involved with home inspection. I don't know why they'd even attempt, but I guess they're just not aware of the downside. So you don't want to get sued, not in this industry, right?
That's one thing that you try to stress to clients, that cheaper isn't always better, right?
That's right.
We want to make sure that.
That's right. A few years ago, the government passed the Consumer Protection Act, which included the payday loan companies, the door-to-door hot water tank salespeople, and home inspectors. So they've already lowered the interest rate at the cash money places. They're not allowed to do the door-to-door hot water tank sales anymore. And now we're just waiting to see what happens with the home inspection industry. They've passed the Home Inspection Act. It just hasn't made its way down the lines yet.
Okay. Fair enough. We actually had quite a few questions come in. What we do is we like to send out a link where people in our database, past clients, they can all kind of email in different questions. So if you're good to go, I'm going to kind of fire off them, and we can hopefully get through most of them.
Yeah, please.
Okay, awesome. So one client asked, what is a common problem that you might encounter in a home inspection?
Good question. Because you know what? There are some things that you see almost all the time. And I almost have to joke with people sometimes, because every house has a foundation crack. Every house has a double tap in the electrical panel, and 9 out of 10 of them have at least one reverse polarity plug in every house. You see these things all the time. And the reason I kind of stress that is because sometimes when you're working with people, the term or the word foundation cracks is a little scary, but you have to remind them every house has foundation cracks. Like I literally go to your next door neighbors and find them there also. The important thing is that we're documenting it. You know that we can make some improvements, we can do some foundation repairs, but generally typical based on, say, an age, the house of this age. So it's just important to me how you word things, but those are very typical foundation finds or home inspection finds. Would be a couple cracks and gaps around on the outside, some very typical electrical problems. There's no such thing as the perfect house. You know, something will always come up.
You haven't come across one?
I have not seen the perfect house. I've never had a report with nothing written in it.
Oh, that's my mission now, Bryan. I'm going to
find the perfect house. Yeah, please find me the perfect house.
No, that's a good point, right? Because like you were saying, I find a lot of people say, oh, is that a crack in the foundation? Well, yes.
Yes.
But let's find out, like, it's not active. It doesn't appear like there's any water coming in, right? So
that's the thing. Yeah. There are bad cracks. We know what those look like, but a lot of cracks are very typical. You'll find them in the bottom corners of the basement windows. You'll find them in and around the outside, around the perimeter. It's more if you see a horizontal crack going through a block foundation from the inside, those are the ones that really concern the home inspectors. That's a sign of hydrostatic pressure. Basically, the earth is pushing on the home from the outside, and that's the kind of thing that would require some further evaluation. We might have to bring in a bit of an engineer to take a look at it, but that's what the home inspector is there to point out to people. You know, those are the ones that we're looking for.
Awesome. Okay. Another question that a client had was, do you have any type of tool that could determine if the home had water damage?
Yes. But before I talk about the tools, I'm going to talk about my nose, because that's really my number one tool. You know, oftentimes you can step foot into a front door, take a deep breath, and you can smell that there's something going on. There's a bit of a mustiness. There's something in the air. So like I use my eyes and my nose all the time. You know, we're doing that perimeter walk around the basement. We're checking for moisture in the carpet. We're looking for the staining or the evidence of previous moisture penetration. But on top of that, I've got an infrared camera. I'm a level 1 thermographer specific for building investigation. With the infrared camera, you can see active leakage. It highlights it so clear as day. It's amazing. Now the thing is, if there was an active leak, say behind the wall, because we couldn't see that. This camera would pick up on that. The infrared camera would show it to you. So sometimes you can't see on a finished material that there's some evidence of moisture, but the infrared camera would just highlight it and show you exactly where it is. But you got to be careful with the infrared cameras, because that information is subject to interpretation. You know, it's based on temperature, not moisture. So we're looking at a temperature differential, which could be caused by moisture. And then it's important to carry a moisture meter also. So you can see that there's an uneven surface with the camera, and then you want to use your moisture meter to confirm that it's moisture.
Okay.
And then at the same time, you have to be careful using moisture meters these days, because you need to know how much moisture is in things in the first place. If you put a moisture meter on a concrete foundation, it's going to go right up into the red, because there's moisture in concrete. But you need to know and be able to decipher what is normal and what is above normal as far as the percentage of moisture in the materials.
Okay, awesome. So that's something that you could flag and then bring to
the
attention.
Yeah. And I just like to kind of point out the misuse of these moisture meters, because you can intimidate a client by accident by using the wrong tool at the wrong time.
Okay. Another question that we had come in is, can you explain what a WETT inspection is and why someone might want one?
Sure, absolutely. In fact, I'm a WETT certified fireplace inspector. WETT is wood energy transfer technology, or transfer trained, and it has to do with wood burning appliances. So whether it's a wood stove or a masonry fireplace, or in some cases there's real old wood burning furnaces in houses, a lot of it has to do with clearance to combustible materials and general condition. And the WETT inspections are more for your insurance company or your client's insurance company. They may require one depending on what kind of fireplace it is. So if you're in a house and it has a wood stove, you probably need a WETT inspection. If you're in a house and it just has like a masonry fireplace that was built with the house, you might not need one. So step one would be to call your insurance company, find out if you need the wet inspection, and then we can complete it for you. Because I'm still going to be, or we should, the other home inspectors, we should be looking at the fireplace anyway, and I'd be pointing out a couple of reasons why this might not pass a home inspection, or a wet inspection for that matter, and to have it looked at for this, and this reason. But wet inspections are for your insurance companies, and it has to do with wood burning fireplaces. So not the gas fireplaces, but just wood burning.
So you would need to have that designation to be able to inspect it for insurance purposes.
You need to be a WETT certified fireplace inspector. It took me about 9 months to get my WETT certification. The hardest part was that you had to have 200 hours of like in-field training, which is difficult because there's not that many wood burning fireplaces out there, or at least you have to kind of get permission to get into people's houses to look at them. So at the time, I went up north to cottage country, and I was training with somebody that had that experience where there are a lot more fireplaces. So that 200 hours was a lot quicker for me just by going up north for a short period.
Nice. Yeah. It's a fun, different atmosphere too. So that's
absolutely. Yeah. I get to live in cottage country.
So we had a question come in through our chat here. So someone would like to know, what are the top 3 things that you recommend to look for as a priority in the home inspection?
Top 3 things. That's a tough one.
I know, because your report's normally like this.
Exactly. I've got a good 40 to 70 page report, depending on the size of the house and what comes up. But it's a very thorough inspection. So I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. We're on the roof, we're in the attic, we test all the plumbing, electrical, heating, ventilation, do a room by room inspection, opening and closing doors and windows. We're checking all the lighting and receptacles throughout a home. I like to run the plumbing for an extended period of time, because then I can use the infrared camera to look for evidence of plumbing leaks. I start at the top of the house and work my way down. So we're on the second floor, I run the plumbing, I get to the main floor, I can start scanning the ceilings from underneath to look for evidence of moisture penetration. There's a lot that could be done here. But number 1, 2, and 3 would be probably the roof and the mechanicals. So plumbing, electrical, heating, ventilation, that's more than 3, but those are kind of your big ticket items. And then also, depending on the size of the house, would include windows, because if you get into, say, a 2,500 square foot 2-story house, that's $20,000 worth of windows, So it kind of depends on the house. Sometimes I can pull into a neighborhood and know which 3 things I'm going to find just based on the style of the house. When you get into a 1960s bungalow, we're looking for the asbestos around the air registers. We're looking for some older style piping and materials that might be in use. I get into the 70s, we're looking for the aluminum wiring. If it's a 100-year-old home, there could be knob and tube and lead piping or a buried oil tank. So I think that question, to answer that best, it depends on where and the house is, what style of house it is, and I guess what our clients' concerns are going into the inspection in the first place.
Right. Most, I find, like you mentioned, it's the higher ticket items that most people are concerned about. Whether
I think so.
Have to adjust a few things here, like, or update something, it's not a big deal. But if the house needs a new roof, or that the windows aren't sealing and whatnot, like those are going to be big tickets that they have to financially prepare for, right?
That's right. Agreed.
Or we have to negotiate for one or the other.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a lot of questions coming in, so I'm going to try to keep up here. What advice do you have for buyers when getting a detailed home inspection? So is there certain things that they should be receiving with a certified home inspector that they should maybe before, like,
Mike,
is that sorry, Michelle? Yeah,
I'm going to apologize to interject. So first, we've got quite a few people that are just inquiring. So this one is an actual, and I'm very curious on. If you have a buyer and they get a detailed home inspection, they may or may not necessarily know how to interpret that. So if you ever come across that scenario of how do they interpret, because they may walk away from something that's so minor, but when a realtor is explaining it. So I really would like your insight on that. Yeah.
And you know what, again, a lot of things these days vary depending on the clients, because sometimes I'll give people a laundry list of problems with the house, and it doesn't matter what I say, they're buying it because it's in the right neighborhood and it's the kind of house that they want. And sometimes I'll point out one relatively minor repair, maybe a $250 repair, and we're walking away from $1 million house. And I don't know why we're really walking away. Maybe they decided to change their mind without the home inspection report anyway. But it really varies client to client. Again, my advice to you would be that, if you're interviewing your home inspectors, if you're calling around for some quotes, I like to forward people a copy of the standards of practice for home inspecting that I follow so that they know what I'm going to be looking at and some of the limitations that would be involved with the home inspection. I also like to have a pre-conversation. I really like to have a phone call the night before with my clients just to see what they're looking to get out of the home inspection, what their concerns are with the house before we even get there. And, oftentimes people don't have any concerns, and oftentimes just from the open houses, they picked up on one or two items that they want to make sure that we comment on when we're there.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
That really helps because we've kind of been in those scenarios. So I was interested in your insight.
Yeah. Okay.
So far, yep. Sorry. So I'm going to defer back to you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, cool. We're just kind of co-hosting here, so she gets some questions
Please.
come in that I
no
don't.
problem.
Okay, so a question regarding COVID, because we're in different times right now.
Yes.
How has that affected how you're able to perform your home inspection?
Okay, so that's another good question, and another one that I'm going to give you a bit of a variation in answers because depending on who you talk to, I think you're getting a couple different answers. Again, home inspection being an unregulated industry, no one from the government is telling me what to do. We're just doing this on our own. So independently, I decided to just be doing one inspection a day, whereas I used to do two. But I just don't want to go from house to house and have that potential spread. And then again, it really depends on the vendor or the homeowner because everybody has varying appreciation for what's going on here. I've been to some home inspections where people are literally taking my temperature as I walk in the door, and they're wearing face shields and visors and masks and gloves. And that's fine. I'll do it too, as per your request. I wear PPE. I've got gloves and I've got a mask. In some cases, I'm in houses by myself, as per the homeowner. And in some cases, they'll let a few more people in for the review. But I think qualifying the homeowner or asking them some questions before the inspection would be ideal, because I think house by house, we need to follow the rules that they want us to. We're going into somebody else's house, and that's important to remember.
So it hasn't affected really how in regards to the time that you have in the home and things. You've noticed that a lot of people are very accommodating and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, my average home inspection is between 2 and 3 hours, depending on the house and what comes up. And then I normally have about an hour or an hour and a half worth of homework to do at nighttime, just fine tuning the report and editing it here, just to save some time on site. Typically, again, everybody knows to book a 3-hour window for a home inspection. I've not had any issues as far as timing goes. It's just making sure that we're wearing the personal protective equipment, and we're doing our best to contain the spread.
Awesome. Okay.
Nicole, we have another question. I'm not sure. I want to make sure it came through. And it's from Jared. He actually has just sent over a couple of pics, and he was looking to get some insight on the cracks in the foundation, water stains from a past leak, and then there's appearances of mold. Now he has pics, so and then one of the questions that we had asked before is just the area that Bryan covers. Like, Bryan, so we have a client right now on the call that's kind of got a burning question, and here's some pics that they can share.
Can we see the pics? Is that something you can put on the screen?
I'm not sure on your end. Do you have? If you're not, so this is what I'm going to do.
Okay.
For everybody on the line, we're going to get an inspector, and they're going to give us some insight on this. So, Nicole, I'm going to just bring the screen back and show it so that
share your screen, and then we can all see it.
Absolutely. So just one sec. I'm going to bring it up. And let me just open it up here. Okay. I'm going to cross my fingers, and hopefully we can all see the screen. Let me know if you can see what's there.
Okay, I'm not seeing anything yet.
I gotta hit this share. My goodness, I have to follow instructions. Okay, bear with me for a moment. I didn't.
There you go.
Button. There we go.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, when were these pictures taken?
I believe they were taken within the last 1 to 2 days. And
Good.
I'm just going to stop share, bring it back online, and then ask that question. I believe it was just, that's one. I'm actually going to open up the next one, and then I'm just going to post that question. And I think we managed to do this in 2 minutes. So I appreciate everybody online. And folks, when we're doing this, it's a whole team that kind of assesses. So bear with it a sec.
Sure. I'm going to make a couple comments right off the bat, if I could, just based on the picture that I was looking at. Okay. Number one, I love the fact that that's an unfinished basement. So we're not trying to find moisture in behind a wall. We can see it right on the foundation. So this is clear evidence of previous moisture penetration. It doesn't look like a new home. So like this could be something that happened 10, 15 years ago. We have to take that into consideration, especially because we did, depending on where it is, have some recent wet weather. I know that we had quite a rainstorm in Oakville a couple of days ago. It's raining today. So, you know, in some cases, depending how recent the rainstorm was, we should be seeing active leakage. But I also see in the first picture there was some efflorescence on the floor. That's that white salty residue. So when water disintegrates, it leaves behind that salty residue just to let me know that it's been there. So I would always put that in the report because that's signs of previous foundation leaks. Whether it's dry or not on the day that we're there, I would always put that in the report because I can never guarantee a dry basement, and here's some evidence that it's been a little damp in the past. But you know what? I mean, 9 times out of 10, it's something outside related. It's that the grading is sloping towards the house. The downspouts aren't extended away. Who am I looking at here?
Yeah, so it was JR, one of our realtors that we work with in Toronto, and he took it yesterday. It was a 40-year-old property.
40-year-old property?
Yeah,
okay, so that's 1970s type construction.
Yeah.
So it's a poured concrete foundation. I'd be looking on the outside first. I bet there's an area of the outside that slopes towards the foundation, or that somebody didn't clean out their gutters and the water was pouring over the edge and it was too close to the foundation. Oftentimes, and I explain this to people almost every day, that you as a homeowner can prevent moisture entry simply by keeping water away from the house. If you're going to let water pool next to the foundation, it's going to make its way through. And I don't care if you've had a dry basement for 40, 50 years. It just takes that one rainstorm with the directional rain coming in from a certain way to have a foundation leak for the first time. So again, I would document that as evidence of previous, but dry when we were there with recent wet weather, and then just kind of remind my clients that, you know, here we are in an unfinished basement. You can keep your eye on this. If we're going to finish the basement any more than this, then let's repair that first. You don't want to put drywall in front of a damp foundation, and it might include damp proofing, and it could get a little expensive sometimes, but oftentimes it's just grading, downspout extensions, cleaning out your gutters. There's things that you can do to prevent moisture accumulation.
Amazing. No, I really, really appreciate that, because that's true.
Bryan.
I knew of somebody that had that scenario happen and had to dig. It was costly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it can be. Yeah.
So we have another question that someone else wrote in. They wanted to know what is the craziest home inspection experience that you've had?
I've had some pretty crazy ones, and I don't know if you want me to share this online. You know what? I've seen some. First of all, this is why I really love what I do, because sometimes I'm in mansions in Niagara-on-the-Lake that have 10 bathrooms that take a whole day to go through, and very, very custom, very, very cool homes. And then sometimes I'm in some of the worst living conditions that you can imagine, hoarding and mental health problems like you wouldn't even believe. You know, sometimes I've left inspections and called my mom and thanked her for raising me like a normal person, because people don't live the way that we know. This one in particular, and I won't give you too many details because it's a little gross, but basically this woman was hoarding her own poop, and it was disgusting. And it was, long story short, when I went into her apartment, the ground was wet. And she was living in a garage, converted garage apartment. She had some mental health problems. I'll give you my short story because it's fun. I was with my client, Stephen. The real estate agent gave us the keys to this fourplex. She didn't want anything to do with going inside of it because she knew that there was a problematic person. They warned me. They said one of the tenants has a mental health / hoarding problem, which is fine. I've seen that all before. In this particular case, it was me and my client, Stephen. He's walking me around. We saved this bad unit for last. We get to it. The door is literally leaning on the frame. It's not attached to the hinges anymore. And he knocks on it and he says, Mary, it's me, Stephen. I'm with the home inspector. We're going to come in. Knock, knock, knock. Mary, it's me, Stephen. And did it several times to the point where I started to chuckle because I thought, there's nobody in there. Nobody said anything yet. So finally he picks up the door, moves it out of the way. We go into this unit. Right away, the ground is wet. And it smells terrible. Like clearly there's a sewage problem, or so I was thinking at the beginning of this. And I was commenting about the wet floor because it was a rainy day and clearly water's coming in. We're at the garage level here. And he's like, oh no, Bryan, that's not coming from outside. It's coming from in here. And he pointed into the bathroom and there was literally a mound of poop on top of the toilet, like a mountain. And it was flowing down and it was into the carpet. And I realized that I was standing in it. And I thought, like, we don't need to see anything else. You've got a huge problem in here. And
how do you inspect?
Exactly. It was kind of like, you have a problem here with your tenant. It was a mental health thing. Somebody needs to come and remove this lady and give her some help. And then we can gain proper access to this place. And you're probably gonna have to gut it. Like this isn't a safe living condition anymore. And I'll always remember it because it was a doozy, obviously, of a home inspection. But there was something there's a mental problem there, and she needed some help. And I thought, my son was only like 3 months old at the time. And I thought, I went home, I threw out all the clothes I was wearing that day because I couldn't bear the thought of me coming into my house with my pant cuffs touching the ground after what I was just standing in, and my baby's crawling around on the floor. So it was quite an eye-opening experience. So,
I guess people don't realize, right? Like you see kind of all scenarios. Like you could run into bed bugs. You could run into lots of different things, right?
I've seen hidden weapons, and I've been in biker houses and all kinds of stuff. It gets really interesting. Lots of regular houses. Every once in a while, you're like, "Whoa, what did I get myself into here?" Yeah.
Just to spice things up every once in a while, you need.
That's right. That's right.
A different scenario, right?
That's right. But I like it. It's just it's a good story for the future. So you gotta have good stories. And I've seen a few.
And it adds to the learning experience. I'm sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we have another question that came in was, do you ever do different levels of inspections? So I guess someone had said that they've called other home inspectors and they have like a one-pager, things like that.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a bit of what's going on here. First off, my answer is no. I have one inspection and it includes everything. So I'm not going to name my previous employer, but the company that I used to work for had a 3-tier inspection system. There was basically the basic inspection, there was a premium, and there was one up from that. So it started at $400, we went to $600 or $700, and then all the way up to $1,200, depending on how much work you wanted done. For me, the difference between the $400 one and the $600 one was basically an infrared camera scan. And I thought, well, that's a tool that every home inspector should have. Why would I be charging extra for it? So I do these infrared scans at no additional charge. And because of that, I don't need a tiered system for home inspections. The only thing that I charge extra for would be a wet inspection because that's not a home inspection. So there's an associated cost to the wet inspection. But now, the other side to that is that I know that there are some home inspectors out there that are offering like a 5-point or a 7-point inspection. They call it an insurance inspection. It's for doing during open houses. Sometimes the market gets so hot in real estate that you're kind of forced to forego the home inspection, and home inspectors are doing these smaller inspections just so they can keep working. The downside to it is that the insurance companies, like Hub, the company that I deal with, they won't insure a 1-hour inspection or a 20-minute walkthrough inspection. So you have to be really careful as far as your liability is with home inspections and with real estate for that matter. If you're promoting a 20-minute walkthrough inspection, you're actually leaving yourself open to future lawsuits because we are just not doing the job that should be done.
Right. And I mean, it's one of those things, right, where it's like, it's great. Everyone wants to save money, but at the same time, if you're going to pay $100 for like a 1-pager or a 1-pointer, however it goes, like, why would you not pay the couple $100 more to have the proper full inspection done? Because you might have missed things and then you're going to want more information anyways.
That's right. Yeah. So in order for me to have insurance, and I've got $2 million worth of errors and omissions and professional liability specific to home inspection, but to have that, I need to complete my inspections to a specific standards of practice. I have to answer certain questions, and that's why I've got like a 40 to 70 page report, because I've got certain information that I need to retrieve from every house that answers all of the insurance company questions for your clients, that documents the conditions of the home. It's got to be very well readable for future reference. And you just can't do that in 1 hour. So you're really leaving yourself open to future problems. It happened. I know there was a case in Cambridge about 2 years ago. It was a 7-point inspection. It wasn't documented the way that a home inspection should be documented. And when the homeowner moved in, they saw some sloping to the floor. It went to court, and the home inspection company lost a $22,000 claim. And the insurance company didn't cover it for them because it wasn't conducted under the standards of practice. I won't put myself in that position. It's not worth it for me to lose my house because I made $100 that day instead of the $300 or $400 that a regular inspection would be worth. Yeah. So it happens. Unfortunately, sometimes I'm a little slow with these multiple competing offers, but it's the nature of the business.
Well, oftentimes too, if a home is holding off on offers and there's going to be a multiple offer scenario, the realtor too, we can sometimes say, listen, it's at your best interest. If we're going to go, pedal to the metal, let's get a pre-inspection done, right?
Yep, a pre-offer inspection. Yeah, we do those. Yeah, and that's still a complete home inspection. It's just the homeowners need to give us a little window to go through the home. More than a half an hour. I need a minimum 2 hours to get a proper home inspection, mostly complete, and then I can do the homework to make up for it at home.
Yeah, and most sellers are very accommodating. I mean, they want to sell their house. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And then another question that came in through our email inquiry here was, is there any type of warranties that can be offered through home inspectors? So I don't know if you offer any types of warranties, or have you heard of, like, is it common? Yeah. How does that?
So First Title Insurance offers a home warranty for home inspectors that you can pay an additional fee for. But it's kind of a catch-22. So again, according to my insurance policy, we can't offer warranties to our home inspections. So the people that are doing it are kind of leaving themselves open to future problems. I shouldn't be warranting something. If it's something because say the basement or the garage was too full of things, I couldn't tell you what was happening in there on the day of the inspection. I could always come back after someone's emptied the garage to take a better look. I'd rather go back and look at something again than to warranty something that I haven't seen. So you need to be very careful how that works again. Yeah, I know people do it, but it's not a service that I offer.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And then another question that came in was regarding Kitech. So
yeah,
I'm sure you've come across Kitech.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question was, if a home had Kitech and there weren't any immediate issues, do you have any advice for this person?
Yes. 1 second here.
So this is Kitech is an important, for all those that are listening, I'm just going to get everybody's attention for a second.
Sure.
I know I've encountered this, and we have experienced the home flooding. So, and we're a little familiar with one of the developers that used to use the product, but for everybody that's just watching for Facebook Live, everybody that's on, Kitech is a plumbing, it's basically a system that was developed a number of years ago, and let's just say there was maybe a little bit of a flaw, so this is an important one to listen to. I just wanted to preface it.
I have some Kitech plumbing, so I get to show you firsthand what we're looking at here. This is the hot water side, the orange pipe to Kitech plumbing. And just so you know, it's not just Kitech. This is Plumb Better. It's also included under the Kitech lawsuit. Right. If you go to kitechsettlement.com, it'll give you a bunch of information about Kitech and what the concerns were.
Kitech's the brand, right?
Kitech is a brand,
Right.
yeah, but it's like an umbrella brand. So there's a couple others that are included within the Kitech supplement. The problem is that, I don't know if you can see that or not, but within this pipe, there's aluminum. And the aluminum inside this plastic pipe makes contact with the brass fittings. You get two dissimilar metals that are in contact with each other and they start to corrode. And if you look at this very carefully, there is actually a little bit of white staining right in and around the seams of this. This pipe was just beginning to fail when they had it removed from the houses. Right in here, you can see that little bit of white. So what happens is it starts to corrode. So you get a damaged connection because of the corrosion. It leaks. In some case, that leak will turn into a burst and it'll flood a house. So if you have Kitech plumbing, your insurance company will require it to be replaced. Now, I did come up with this recently where someone said there was a Square One Insurance or something out of Mississauga that was offering insurance for Kitech houses. It's the first I've ever heard of it. But so if you do some research, you may find some insurance companies that will now insure Kitech. But I'd be budgeting for a replacement because even if it's okay with you, it might not be okay with the people that are buying your house in the future. I deal with a company called Pro Results Plumbing out of Oakville. They kind of specialize in Kitech removal among other plumbing things, but the advantage to these people is that they don't just replace the plumbing, but they patch all the holes in the walls too, because that's part of it too. We're not just replacing plumbing, we're damaging the house, replumbing it at the same time. And this particular company does those repairs as part of the work that they do. But Kitech was used basically between 1995 and 2007. 2007 is when they took it off the market. It was recalled. When I find it, 9 times out of 10, it's in houses built in around 2006, 2007. It was more popularly used towards the end before it was recalled. I've never really seen it in a house from 1995 before. Not to say that it doesn't exist. It was on the market. It just wasn't popular yet. But if you get into a newer development, and there's a few, in Grimsby and in Burlington, I can't really name the developments, but they're out there. You need to be looking for this. Orange hot piping is a clear indicator of Kitech. It says Kitech right on the pipe in a lot of places, or Plumb Better. This is kind of the new galvanized piping. So, when we get into the 1950s or 40s, 50s houses, we look for galvanized piping. Now we're looking for Kitech in newer developments, not brand new, but 15-year-old developments.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. I'm so happy that you had those there because I had people ask me, well, what is Kitech, right? And I'll often say, well, you can sometimes see on the piping, it'll say Kitech, right?
Yeah.
And the colors as well. But now with the newer plumbing too, you can
Best
still
place
have
to look for it would be above the hot water tank in the utility room. That's where you're going to see the most exposed plumbing in a house. So if you want to take a quick look, that's where you'll find it.
Awesome. There we go. So that's like a big golden nugget of info that you definitely shared today for a lot of people.
Good.
Also, we have another question here. It's regarding dealing with first-time home buyers. They want to know if they're nervous about certain things. So you covered the Kitech. Another issue that they mentioned was mold in an attic of an older home. So
yes.
For example, in Hamilton, we have a lot of those East 42nd type of bungalows, right? And first time home buyers are, able to purchase a detached home and in a great family neighborhood. So those homes, they are older. So you could run into possibly mold. You could run into other issues like you were mentioning, the UFI or
UFI, yeah. UFI's an interesting one, yeah.
Right? I'll let you maybe pronounce the whole.
That's okay.
I just use the acronym because
it's urea formaldehyde insulation.
Yeah. Formaldehyde, that's the one I have trouble with. Yeah.
I'm going to touch base on UFI real quick just to explain it to you because I find this one very interesting. UFI was more of a problem for the installers because it gases off a toxic gas when you're spraying it. And for the first couple weeks or months of it being installed, it kind of aerates into a room. So technically, it would have gassed off in about 2 years after its installation. And we haven't used it since the beginning of the 80s. So to me, as far as I'm concerned, houses with UFI aren't really a concern. I hardly see them. I think in 3,000 houses, I've probably found it 10 times. But I think that they should be replacing that on the disclaimer page for something like asbestos, because Canada and the United States banned UFI in the early 80s, I think in 1980, and then 2 years later, the United States took away that ban because it was gone. It's not a problem anymore. Canada, we never lifted that ban here. If it was me, I'd be replacing UFI with something like asbestos again, because that's more of a concern. It's more still commonly found in houses even now.
Even wrapping, I've even seen it on the wrapping of piping.
Like asbestos wraps and
Yeah.
UFI wraps. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I came across a house with the UFI, and I guess the biggest concern was like to remove it, and then not knowing how much of the home it is in, right? Because
oftentimes it was installed after the house was built. So if you get into, say, a 1950s or 60s bungalow, and on the outside you'll see these little round holes that have been drilled into the siding and then patched over, that was probably a UFI installation. And again, when it was gassing itself off, it was also shrinking. So when I use my infrared camera, if I scan an outside wall, you'll basically see these big squares of missing insulation in walls because it settled down to almost nothing. If you're ever looking at it, or you want to know what it looks like, to me, it looks like a big foamy shaving cream that's dried solid. But when you touch it, it just turns into powder and disintegrates in your hand. That's UFI insulation. Yeah, urea formaldehyde.
See, it's a tongue twister.
And then as far as like the mold in attics goes, I mentioned this earlier. Sometimes I can determine what kind of problems we're going to find in the house as soon as I pull in a street. When you get into, for some reason, most commonly side splits and back splits with low pitch 412 roofs, that's where I'm going to find the mold 9 times out of 10. And it's just very common in those types of environments for a couple of different reasons. I think because of the low slope roof, the airflow is missing. But I'll give you a couple examples of what happened. So first off, what I would tell people as far as removing it goes is that we should have found out what caused it in the first place. Normally it's airflow. A lot of attics are missing airflow, and that airflow would reduce moisture accumulation. So without it, we've got moisture buildup, which is going to turn into mold growth. So you've got your roof. There are roof vents on top. Warm air naturally rises, but we need the new fresh air coming in underneath at the soffit vents to give you that convection loop of airflow. And then, so the house originally had 3 inches of insulation. We wanted to make it more energy efficient. We added 10 or 12 on top of that. And in that process, we blocked the perimeter venting. What they should have done is installed baffles around the perimeter, allowing that air to still come in. So we increased the insulation, which is great. We're making the house more energy efficient, but we blocked the airflow in the installation, and now we're causing ourselves a mold problem. So really, it's more to do with an improper installation. Or another cause could be that, bathroom exhaust fans weren't required up until I think in around the late 80s or early 90s. Houses that have done the install after the fact don't always connect that all the way to the outside. They just vent it up into the attic. So every time you have a hot shower, you're blowing that warm, damp air into what is already a warm, damp environment during the summer months, and it causes a mold problem. And then as far as the repair goes, there's a good, better, best to any kind of repair. Good being a lot of people can go up there with a mold control paint or primer and paint over these surfaces to prevent the mold growth from continuing. Of course, that's after you've corrected the airflow problem. Or better than that would be having somebody go in and they can soda blast, which is basically like sandblasting with baking soda. So it's like an environmentally friendly way of sandblasting the surfaces of the attic down, and then they can paint over them or at least know that it's been removed. And then the best method would be that waiting for the future, you're going to do a re-roof. You're going to strip the shingles down. You're going to take the plywood off too and re-plywood and then re-roof that house. So then we're removing all of that mold in the process. But first of all, you got to correct the cause. You got to get the airflow back.
Right, because you don't want it to continue, right?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, if you go in there and correct it or replace the boards, but you didn't fix the problem, it's just going to happen again in the future.
Yeah, more money.
That's right. That's right.
You know what? I appreciate you coming on today and taking time to, give us all this information and share with our clients and everyone else that's on Facebook Live that wanted to tune in as well. We're going to make sure, Michelle, you said we're going to put all of Bryan's contact info up. So if anyone has any additional questions or would like, maybe they never had a home inspection done too. I've had people ask me like, is it weird? Like, I've never had my home inspected. I said, it's not just for first time buyers or new or people purchasing again. Some people might want, a home inspection done on their current property as well, right?
I encourage a pre-renovation inspection also sometimes. And the reason I say that is that I've seen people spend big money on brand new kitchens and bathrooms, but we should have spent that money on the roof, so we did all this great work. It looks beautiful, but you got a leaky roof. So maybe we should have done that first. And it never hurt to have a home inspector come in and just point out some of the things, the maintenance tips, the things that haven't been done over the years. There's money that could be spent in better areas sometimes.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah.
So Nicole, I'm just going to chime in for 10 seconds if that's okay. So first, I just wanted to comment because we've been getting comments on Facebook Live, and I want to thank you immensely, Nicole, and thank you immensely, Bryan, for facilitating, because they found it's very informative. There's a lot of really important information here.
Good.
And I actually been sitting here thinking, we've been in our home for this many years, and you know what? I never thought about just getting a home inspection because it just sometimes don't know. And
were you just like, I'm in a back split?
Yeah, exactly. So, but we have JR who's on with us right now. JR, we do work with him. He's in actually Toronto to Ajax. So, so Nicole's going to get a chance to connect soon. But Jay, just thank you. He's got a few more questions. So if it's okay,
Sure.
You guys get connected, he can send it over, and then at least can give him a little bit of insight. And you may have, I'm not sure, but this was the other question I had is, do you go all over Ontario? What's your area? Or do you have people that you could refer to in Toronto?
Yes and no. So I am a one-man operation, but I pretty much go anywhere. So I focus my business in Houlton and Hamilton, but I've been as far as Clarington and Oshawa, up to Fergus. I do a lot of inspections in Brantford, Belleville, Dunnville. I was in Smithville this morning. I go to Fort Erie and Niagara Falls. Within an hour's drive is pretty easy. I'll go further than that when necessary. Yeah. I don't promote my business in Toronto, but I won't turn down an opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You need to start a sister company. Inspect 416.
416 and 519. I know. I should buy those websites.
My best practices, Ryan. I mean, this is, when you like we need to replicate you a few times is sort of a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
And you know what, Michelle, just because Michelle and the CC Realty team is a big believer in the Think and Grow Rich program, right? So Michelle always likes to kind of leave off with a positive note or kind of like an insight. So I'm going to kind of ask you, Bryan, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
That's a good question. I'll still be in this industry, I'm sure. I love what I do. I really enjoy being a home inspector, and I really enjoy working for myself. It's made things very convenient for me and my family to be able to spend this quality time together. So I think in 5 years' time, you're going to see me doing the same thing.
Are we going to see more Inspect 905 trucks driving around, or?
Okay, so I get asked that question quite a bit. I would have a hard time hiring somebody. I feel like this business is really based on reputation, and it wouldn't take long for one or two bad inspections to tarnish my reputation. So I would have a hard time hiring somebody, but maybe in the future that might happen. Because during some of the busier seasons, last summer, I was booking more than 7 days in advance. And it's hard because you're turning down jobs. People are calling you like, I'm booking into next week. But that's not a bad thing for me, but it's hard to I don't like to turn business down, and oftentimes your conditions are only between 2 and 5 days, depending on the home. So I'm not sure to what extent I'm going to grow my business. I don't mind being the smaller one-man operation for now. Maybe that obviously I'd like to retire someday, and I might sell my company to somebody, but that's not even something I'm thinking about right now.
You can tell you have
Nicole. Bryan has what we would call a phenomenal playbook in his head. So maybe as time unfolds, he might have some consideration how we can get a little bit of that best practice out, and it gets. We always have the source where it came from, but you know, there's a lot of people out there, Bryan, that could benefit from, and they look for mentors like yourself. That
Yep.
they want in the city.
Teaching, maybe teaching, Bryan.
Perfect.
Well, awesome, Michelle. I'll let you wrap things up because you always like to stay on.
You know what? Well, I'm not going to say too much. We just had Jay that just joined us. So just in closing, I'm just going to let everybody know. So everybody that's joined us on the Facebook Live, everybody here that's on our Eventbrite, just thank you immensely for joining. Bryan Shering is a 20+ year experienced home improvement professional, but in the last 10+ years, he's been on his own, and he is an accredited home inspector, but he's one of the top accredited home inspectors, and he has inspected just under 3,000 homes.
That's right.
The best in the industry. Now, guys, when we're looking at one of our biggest price tickets, which is generally our home, if not, we might have one or two, but it's such a huge investment for the little bit that it's going to take you. Even if you have, so if you're thinking, you know, anybody that's out there buying, home inspector, and home inspectors are not all the same. So I will definitely refer to Bryan. I'm going to make sure everybody has contact info. And two, if you've just lived in your home for a period of time and you're thinking about doing a renovation, not a bad idea to maybe think about an inspection first. Yep. It's really costly after the fact. So you got that beautiful, beautiful kitchen, or that, oh my God, that basement's gorgeous. And all of a sudden you walk in, you smell something, and guess what? It's leaking. You got to rip it out. Better to do it before than after.
That's right.
So Bryan, thank you immensely. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, Nicole. And I loved the question at the end, because yes, we are Think and Grow Rich in all aspects. You know, not money's one thing, but integrity in what we do and educating the right people is the most important.
Listen, if you ever have any home inspection related questions, please give me a phone call. And that does for anybody here that's listening today. My cell phone number is 905-333-0211. I'm always answering my phone. But what I tell, especially the real estate agents, is if you're ever even at an open house and you see something you're not too sure what you're looking at, you can literally text me a picture of it and I'll tell you exactly what you're looking at. I'm always good for a couple easy questions. You call me anytime.
Wonderful.
And I'll vouch for that.
Well, have an awesome evening, everyone. And granted permission, we'd love to have you back in the future on our show. And just thank you so much.
Great. Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, Bryan.
Bye-bye.